right, round of applause. It's so good. All right, y'all. Now I need the energy to be on 100. Please join me in welcoming our first creative genius of the day, the incredible Sterling K. Brown, and our moderator, Brande. Let's give it up for them. Hey!
Hello. How you feeling?
Yeah. What's up, CultureCon? How y'all doing? Good times. Let's go.
Yes. I want to jump right into this movie.
Let's do it.
That clip doesn't even begin to tell you all where this story goes.
Not at all.
No. So I want you to tell us, when you first read the script, what made you say yes?
So the movie, it's hard. I have to talk about the movie without talking about the movie because the movie has a major twist to it.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay. I think what drew me to it is sort of like the expansion of definition of self and how we sort of narrowly define who we are, whether it is as firstborn, whether it is like Christian, whether it is as whatever it is, we have these definitions, and then you find yourself in a particular situation and you find that that definition of self doesn't hold anymore, and so then you have to expand. It's forced expansion. So all I can really it's still funny.
Yes.
But there's something else too.
Gets a little drama in there.
Yeah.
Also, you only have one co-star. That's extremely rare. To kind of only have one person to play off of is Mark Duplass, and who also co-wrote the script. What was that like?
Cool.
Yeah.
As long as the one person that you got to work with is cool,
Okay.
it's fine. If he wasn't cool, it would have sucked. But he was actually a really lovely human being. His wife is an actor. My wife is an actor. He has 2 girls. I have 2 boys. We have points of commonality where we were able to connect with each other very quickly. And it's good to establish a rapport because the shoot was like 19 days, maybe a little bit less than that. And so you have very little time to like get on the same page.
Yeah. And I like seeing you in a comedic role again after Honk for Jesus.
Thank you.
Save Your Soul. You all fans of that?
Thank you. Some people will argue whether that's a comedy or not, but that's okay. I'm open to the conversation about that too.
Yes. To that point, I remember when I talked to you about the comedic element, and you were saying, like, it's not like you get on set and you're like, oh, I got to deliver this joke. Like, you're embodying that character.
Yeah.
You know, and you may happen to be funny. Is it the same for you with Biosphere? Like, what did preparation look like?
Yeah, Biosphere, I would categorize it as a comedy as well. You try to honor the character, the truth of their intentions, and sometimes things are just funny. There's a little, like, inflections. You may go a little bit higher. You may go a little bit higher with a joke, you know what I'm saying? Instead of like bringing it down here, whatever. But just like little sort of nuances that sort of just pump up the comedy just a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of that, I want to take a little break, play a little game.
We're playing a game? All right, talk to me.
It was introduced to me at a dinner party where it was, because there's a scene in the film where you and your co-star think that there might not be any more food. There's the last fish. Don't have anything left to survive.
True that.
So at the dinner, you're picking your last meal on Earth. You get an appetizer, an entree, 2 sides and a drink, but you have to say who's making those meals.
2 sides and a drink.
But is it like your mom's mac and cheese?
So I will go real basic and then I will elaborate and I'll give you something that's closer to your question. If I just had one last thing to eat on Earth, it would be my dad's French toast.
Ooh, okay.
Sterling Brown Jr. passed away when I was 10 years old, almost 11. And when I turned 10, he made me this platter of French toast. Now, I could take down like a loaf of bread. I like carbohydrates when I was a kid especially. So he would make like a loaf of French toast. And I was sitting there, it was my birthday, I opened up, the platter was there, K-Row syrup, just all kinds of high fructose corn, whatever, it's delicious. So get on this platter, and I'm tearing it up. I'm like, thanks, Dad, this is the best gift ever. And he said, hey, man, you spilled something on the bottom of your plate. And I'm like, Daddy, I ain't spilled nothing on the plate. I'm getting all of this in my mouth, son. Like, I'm not missing. He goes, lift up your plate. You did something. I lift up the plate. I said, there ain't nothing under the plate. He goes, look, I'm stuck on the bottom, man. Wipe that syrup off the plate. And there was $100, there was a Benjamin, like on the bottom of the plate. And I was like, Negro, are you serious? toast and a bill?
Okay.
Come on, Jack. Okay, so that would be the meal.
That's the answer, yeah.
That would be the meal. But if you want me to break it down like you want a starter, wait, what do I get now?
Appetizer.
I get an appetizer.
Entree.
I said starter. That's real Negro. Sorry. Appetizer.
Entree.
Like I'm at Chili's and
I
stuff.
know.
I'm gonna that starter.
Listen.
All right, go ahead. Wait.
Appetizer, entree, 2 sides.
Okay,
And a drink.
got it. Appetizer is probably gonna be some kind of like burrata and like heirloom tomato sort of salad.
Fancy.
You know what I'm saying? A little basil on the side, somewhere in Italy.
Okay.
I like that soft cheese. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
The entree would probably be a bone-in ribeye.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? You gotta have that marbling. Mm-hmm. That marbling is flavor for y'all that don't know. When people try to talk like prime rib or like, what's the one that is all fancy, like the filet? Ain't enough marbling on the filet for your boy. I need a little fat, you know what I mean? Where would that be from? I mean, maybe something like Peter Luger's or something like that in New York, what have you. Then what would be on the side? I like broccolini. It's one, I don't know what, you know what I'm saying? I like that thin broccoli, son, that broccolini.
Okay.
It's tasty, a little olive oil drizzle, a little salt, pepper, you know what I'm saying? Okay. I don't know who would make it, but I just like broccolini.
Okay.
Then my wife does tear up a sweet potato.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? I could go with a regular mash, but I like the sweet potato because I feel like I'm honoring the ancestors. We're at CultureCon. You know what I'm saying? Ain't none of us barely had a yam, but the sweet potatoes is close enough to the yam as it can be. So it'll be from my wife. And then, did you say dessert?
Uh-huh.
Oh, and I also get a drink too, don't I?
Exactly. Choose wisely.
Can't forget the drink. I probably have some kind of spicy margarita with a little pineapple in it.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Tequila
Tahini around the rim.
es la bebida más fina en el mundo.
See.
I'm silly. And then dessert. Okay, this is nostalgia because it may not be the best dessert, but it's one that like speaks to me as a child. When I go down to my grandmother's house in the city in St. Louis, Missouri, there was a DQ. St. Louis in the house, respect. There was a DQ right there, and like the blizzard was just born.
Yeah.
Negroes, I would get that Oreo cookie blizzard like in the big Q cup.
Oh, yeah, I'm with you.
I'd turn that joint up, and it would be stuck up in there, and I'd kill it. I'd kill it. So that would be a DQ blizzard to finish off with. Was that all right?
Yeah, I mean, that was great. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I should have saved that for later because now I'm going a little more serious.
It's all good.
But
Serious. I'll weave in a little comedic elements as you get serious.
But in thinking about Biosphere, you know, I feel like we don't often see black men in these types of buddy comedies, particularly as a fully, you know, developed character.
Yeah.
Which I think is such a testament to your legacy as an actor. I am an old school Army Wives fan. That's where my fandom starts. Exactly. See.
Thank you very much.
And so I just think you've really expanded the lens of how black men are seen. And with Biosphere, we see that, you know, there's conversations around masculinity, gender identity, sexual identity. You know, how important is it for you to take advantage of those roles when you get the opportunity? And how have you been able to have a hand in expanding that representation?
It's important, first of all. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and so the folks that I know, and you all probably will feel me on this, are very sort of politically left-leaning but socially conservative oftentimes. And sort of like trying to introduce folks to a new way of seeing people and what their definition of love is, right? Like you don't have to change people in order to love them. You just have to meet them where they are. Ooh. And I feel like, you know, if I have an opportunity as cisgendered heterosexual male to introduce people who identify with me into a new way of seeing their neighbors, who are their brothers and sisters, and just embracing them in love, then maybe it may make it easier for them to embrace their fellow human beings in love as well.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes. That's the takeaway.
Thank you.
You know, and as an extension of that, I think about, I have recently interviewed Delroy Lindo.
Yeah.
And I asked him, you know, how do you choose your roles? And he started laughing and he said, you know, it's not as if I have a pile of choices. It doesn't work like
West
that.
Indian Archie ain't got no choice.
I know that. I was shocked. But I feel like, you know, you look at your credits and the breadth of roles that you've played, and it would seem you've had, you know, your choice, like, you know, your options. Is that fair to say?
You know, so I had a turning point, right?
Yes.
Like up through Army Wives and a little bit beyond that, you know, you take whatever crumbs from the table of joy. I'll be like, please, sir, may I have some more? Then after People versus OJ / This Is Us, etc., the game changed a little bit for your boy, and there were options. There were like, oh, people are like, will you come play in our sandbox? Like, I was like, well, what you got in your sandbox, man? Let me see what's going on. And so, like, I find myself to be incredibly privileged to have some sort of agency and not just have to take whatever comes my way, but to be like, you know what, this is a story that I understand why it's important to tell it, and I can see how I fit into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about that turning point because it feels like around 2016 is when, you know, audiences, the industry as a whole started to see you more, but you've been out here since early 2000s.
Been out in these streets.
Before
toiling.
that. Exactly.
Toiling.
On that journey, you know, were you hoping for the Emmys, the accolades that came later? And if so, like, what kept you going through those years?
I'll answer that question by saying what I thought success was when I came out of grad school. I went to grad school at NYU. I did my 3 years, and I said, God, I didn't put in this time. We did our bid. I said, if I can just pay the bills by doing what it is that I love, that would be success. Since I graduated in 2001, to God be the glory, I haven't had to do anything other than what I love to pay the bills.
Amen.
Right? That was the success that I was hoping for. That is the success that has been my life. Now, the cherry that happened with the accolades and whatnot wasn't anything that I anticipated. But when the opportunity came, I felt like a boxer. I had been throwing my jab, you know what I'm saying, finding little shots to the body, and then that hook opened up, and I'm like, I'm about to bust this cat in the jaw, right? So, like, Darden came along, and I was like, oh, I remember this when I was in college. I was like, didn't nobody like Darden? Should I go play this dude? I don't know. I don't like him either. And then I had a chance to read his autobiography. I read Marsha Clark's autobiography, and I saw what a precarious position this black man was in. Even though, like, we're not buddies by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, I understood. And I think with anything, you just try to understand the character's point of view. You don't always have to like everything about them, but understand what they're trying to do. And so when that happened, I can remember one day I was working on lines, and Ryan, my wife, was like, I need you to help me watch this kid and everything. I was like, I'm gonna watch this kid, but then I gotta go into the garage and work on these lines. She's like, what you doing? I said, I'm trying to get an Emmy. I said it like
Just
that.
like that.
And she was like, well, okay, Mr. Man, you trying to do. And I got the Emmy because I felt it. I was like, this was an opportunity.
Yes.
And they don't come along that often. So when you see it on the page, you're like, this is good. If I can raise my game to the level of the writing that's on this page, then a possibility is open. So I'm happy that it happened.
Yes.
That's it.
And your Emmy speech, you know, is still considered one of the greatest in the history.
Is it?
Yes, it is.
The one that got cut off?
Well, I know. It did.
Woo, Jesus. Yes.
What do you remember about that moment and the expectations you had of your career going from that point?
All right, so I went to Stanford University. I'm a chocolate cardinal. Andre Braugher went to Stanford University. And so I remember the whole time I was an undergrad, people were like, you're like a young Andre Braugher. I was like, who's he? So I went to go watch Homicide Life on the Street, and I was like, oh, this brother's good. I mean, you remember watching Glory and like, oh, he real good, right? And so, like, I was honored to have that sort of comparison. And so he was the last black man to have won Best Lead Actor in a dramatic series before me, so it was a wonder to be able to honor him in that way. There's so much that happens when you're either the first or one of the first few, and we work in these predominantly white spaces or whatnot, because sometimes, really, at the end of the day, you just kind of want to act, or you just want to be a journalist, or you just want to do that. But then people are watching you.
Constantly.
And you got to do something for the culture.
Yeah.
And I love my people so much. It is a joy to be in your presence today, right now. God bless you. I love you. And so you hope that you can come up with something that sticks to people and be like, yo, he represented us well. In representing himself and not trying to be anything other than who he is, he represented us well. That is my hope in perpetuity.
Success.
Amen.
Yeah, success. One of those roles, of course, Randall Pearson.
Yeah.
So it's been a year since we said goodbye to This Is Us, still processing myself. But, being in that role for 6 years, so emotionally toiling, were you looking to do lighter projects like Biosphere after that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like my acting teacher at NYU would always compare acting to controlled schizophrenia. And you guys have some sort of agency in which character you let out at any point in time. And so picking characters that are un-Randall-esque has been part of the job, to sort of try to surprise people as much as possible, because you think that Brown's gonna go this way, and you're like, oh, Brown just did something a little different on it. And so I always try to maintain that element of surprise. I never wanna get stuck in one particular thing. Yeah.
Okay. So when I was researching for this, I came across an old interview when you talked about how when you were 5, you decided you would go by your middle name, Kelby.
That's right.
Until the age of 16, which is exactly what you did.
It is.
And so I was struck, by how headstrong you were as a child. And so I'm curious, how has that helped you through the industry?
I can remember one time my mama wanted me to eat something. I can't remember if it was Brussels sprouts or something, but it didn't have no bacon, no caramelization to it. It was just some plain ass Brussels sprouts. I was like, I don't think I want this, Mom. She's like, well, you're gonna eat what's on your plate, or you're gonna sit there until you do. Bedtime was 9 o'clock. It was 10:15. I have been at that table from 7 to 10:15. She walked back into the kitchen. She said, take your ass to bed. And I said, yes, ma'am. 'Cause I wasn't gonna eat them sprouts. I think that it has served me in that God's yes has been more important than anybody else's no. You understand what I'm saying? Like, God told me, this is your path. Like, real quick, at the end of sophomore year at college, I was an economics major. I wound up changing the drama. I called my mom. I said, I'm thinking about changing my major. And she said, did you pray about it? And I said, yes, ma'am, I did. And she said, this is the way you feel led? And I said, yes, ma'am, I do. And she said, go with God. And so from that point on, I was like, this is my path. Like, I had the good sense / foolishness to say yes to something that didn't quite make sense for me. Yeah. But it was so clear that, like, it didn't matter if the industry was saying, oh, nice job, good for you. Thank you. See you later. I'd be like, all right, thank you. But, like, I knew eventually it's like a marathon. You know what I'm saying? You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And as long as that yes is clear in your head, don't matter what nobody else say, you're going to be all right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to expound a little, because in thinking about, that tipping point, your peak kind of started late 30s, early 40s. And there's so much pressure people feel to have a certain level of success at a certain age. We've got 30 under 30 lists, 20 under 20. For you, what do you say to someone who feels that pressure, who's racing this sort of invisible clock, to hit certain milestones by a certain age?
Everybody's path is so individualistic that you trying to compare your journey to somebody else's is a fruitless pursuit. Like, you shouldn't do it. Like, what God has for you is yours. It is nobody else's. What's for them is theirs. What's for you is yours. You have to trust it. And it may take a little bit longer than you think, but it's always right on time. You know what I'm saying? Like, I thought, I didn't know what I thought from Army Wives or whatever, but I knew that it was good training. I knew that I was learning a lot about being in front of the camera, about being on set, so that when I got other opportunities that may have been higher profile, like I would be ready for those opportunities. I'm so glad it happened when it did. I'm a very confident person. And back in the day, my wife in particular would say, like, you are full of yourself. And maybe she was right. Maybe if it had happened right out of school or in my early 20s or whatnot, nobody would have been able to stand to be around me. But God took his time in humbling me and showing me that, like, it takes time, it takes work, nothing comes easy. Like, all good things come in time, but, like, the fact that it came to me in my late 30s or whatnot, especially with This Is Us, like, we were all mid to late 30s, early 40s or whatnot. We'd all been in this industry for a while to be like, oh, sometimes you have highs, sometimes you have lows. So the level of appreciation to be on that set, to tell that story with people who were your peers, like, it could not have been better because there was no divas amongst us. Yeah. And to have a show called This Is Us, it was perfect. Exactly. It wasn't me, wasn't them, it was all of us.
Yes. My last two questions.
Okay.
Because I still need some more words from you. And
Go ahead.
You always give one. So you recently did the commencement speech at Washington University.
Yeah.
And early on in that, one of the things that stuck out to me, you said, impermanence is the natural state of the universe.
Yeah.
And then later you said, the indoctrination of home can oftentimes be at odds with the evolution of the soul.
That's a good one. That's a good part. I like that.
It challenged me.
Yeah.
Because I'm a person who loves stability, and it's hard for me to come out of my comfort zone. And I felt your whole speech was about go away. You never know what can be possible.
Yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit in embracing the unknown, particularly in your profession?
Absolutely. Listen, I'm from St. Louis, Missouri. I was born in the 80s. I was born in the 70s, excuse me. Grew up in the 80s. Brown trying to take years off his life. No, I'm just kidding.
We wouldn't know.
Yeah, God bless you. I appreciate that. Grew up in the 80s with a deeper shade of soul. Mm-hmm. Was not easy for your boy in the 80s. It was all about Al B. You know what I'm saying? Christopher Williams and Pretty Boys. Don't wake me. I was like, go away. Like Kanye used to say, put somebody black on the screen. I ain't never going away. But, so there was also like a deeply entrenched level of homophobia, which I think was sort of the status quo for that time, for that place. Pledge allegiance to the flag, Michael Jackson, blah, blah, blah. That sort of thing. And I was like, man, why do I feel this way? Why do I think this way? This is so indoctrinated, abomination, homosexuality, et cetera, et cetera. Then I left. I went to the West Coast, right? Met people of Latin origin for the first time. I can remember calling my mama after I went to McDonald's in St. Louis, Missouri. I said, Mama, it's Mexicans got all the black people jobs in California. And she said, really? I was like, Mama, they all Mexican. It's crazy. You see what I'm saying? I wouldn't have known this if I stayed at home. I would have been like, it's just us in McDonald's everywhere you go. Not in California, not true. Then you meet people with alternative lifestyles and you recognize their humanity. You recognize their beauty. You recognize their creativity. And then you have this fundamental question with like, why am I supposed to not like this person? Why am I supposed to shut any part of myself off to this individual? Like, they're a person who is bringing their full selves fully expressed. I think the greatest gift that you can give to another human being is to allow them to fully express themselves in your presence and you accept them as they are.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so part of my journey as an artist, in terms of trying to step into as many people's footsteps as possible, is sort of unconsciously or consciously releasing whatever judgment that I may have had with them and sort of inhabiting their humanity with a fullness because, like, everybody's story has import.
Yes.
My mama asked me one time, she saw me do something that she didn't like, and she's like, now how does this glorify God, Sterling? I said, Mama, well, God created all of us, didn't he? And she goes, okay. I said, well, this person's story is important, so like, if I can fully inhabit this individual in the way in which they see themselves in my performance, then isn't that God's work? And she said, But I'm sticking to it.
Well, last question.
Yes.
Excited for Biosphere, but you have another project that you're working on.
Yeah.
Through your production company, Indian Meadows, which
Yes.
started in 2018. Tell us about Washington Black.
Washington Black, based off of a novel by Essie Edegwan, 2019 New York Times bestseller, follows a young boy on a plantation in Barbados as he goes on this globe-trotting adventure. He leaves on a flying machine. So it's got sort of a Jules Vernean, it's fictional, but it like takes place in the 1830s or whatnot. And he flies off this thing with his abolitionist slave master's brother, and they get chased to the States. And then they get chased to Nova Scotia, and then they wind up going to the Arctic. And you see like a little black boy in the Arctic. It's just a visual that you never get a chance to see. And it sort of connects the diaspora. You see up in Nova Scotia, people from the islands, people from Africa, people from the States. And what it reminds me of, and which gives me such joy, is I think when we were younger, people would be like, you know, be careful, Africans don't like you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't like you the same way or whatnot. And we would sort of differentiate and be like, well, okay, I'll stick with these black people, but those black people, I don't know about them.
Yeah.
We all come from the same place.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? All of our struggles may not be exactly the same, but they similar. You know what I mean? Like if you look, ask the Aboriginals in Australia right now, it's like, yeah, well, this shit is hard. You know, our black people do all right over there, but the Aboriginals are like, nah, this ain't great. So the connective tissue of the diaspora and the importance of that really sort of emphasized for me why it's more important for me to be black than African American, because we all together in this joint. After Black Panther, and after like, am I my brother's keeper? Who is my brother or whatnot? I was like, I stand with anybody who stands with me.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to stand with you and go see Biosphere.
I appreciate you. Thank you,
That's it.
Brande.
Thank you.
Thank you, CultureCon. Appreciate y'all.